So let's talk about the MotoGP and BSB long lap penalty. So to understand the long lap penalty, we need to understand a little bit about how we got here. So prior to 2019, when the long lap penalty was introduced, race organisers had a series of penalties they could give riders either before, during or after a race. These penalties could range from a ride through pit lane without stopping, give a position back, disqualified entirely from the race, start from the back of the grid of the next race, or some time added to their final finishing time at the end of the race. The penalty given would depend on what the offence was. For example, a machine not being compliant for a practice session, riding like a bit of a tit, not slowing down for yellow flags, jump start, track limits infringements, and so on. If you want to see a video on track limits, I have a video explaining that too. I'll link it in the description down below. So depending on how severe the offence was, would depend on which one of these options would be used. However, there was a problem for minor, practice, qualifying, or race infringements. Most of the options didn't really work. A ride through pit lane, depending on circuit, would cost anywhere from 40 seconds to a minute, which is a bit much for exceeding track limits unless you want to be super draconian. Some time could be added to riders' final finishing time in the race, but this isn't great for TV and for the casual viewer to understand who's in what position. And finally, no one likes the actual results that differ from the result on the circuit at the end of the race. Starting from the back of the grid is okay in some circumstances, but can lead to some very aggressive manoeuvres as faster riders come through the field, especially if they're a front runner. So in 2019, MotoGP and BSB, British Superbike, introduced the long lap penalty system, with World Superbike following suit in 2021. The long lap penalty is just that, a section of track, usually around the outside of another turn, that the rider with the penalty must take within a certain number of laps of being told to do so. If you've ever seen rallycross, it's a lot like the Joker lap in rallycross. Long laps typically add 3 to 5 seconds to a lap time. It varies a little bit, track to track, circuit to circuit, layout to layout. There is no speed limit on the long lap section. The rider just needs to stay within the lines and rejoin safely. Riders can be given more than one long lap penalty too. For example, Aleix Espargaro in the MotoGP feature race at Le Mans in 2024, he received a double long lap penalty for a jump start in the previous day's sprint race. If a rider doesn't stay within the lines of the long lap or rejoins the main track unsafely, they'll generally receive a second long lap penalty. The system works well for some infractions. It's an instant penalty. They immediately drop the time in sometimes places when they take the long lap, making it easier for everyone to understand their position in the race. And provided there's enough room and a sort of convenient corner, they're easy to set up and they're easy for race direction to enforce. Some disadvantages are that some circuits have them in strange positions depending on space and layout, and the rejoin isn't always the best, again, depending a bit on track design and where they've put them. However, we have seen them sometimes move locations on circuits year to year. So in 2019, it may have been at the outside of one corner, and then in 2020, they've reviewed it and it's been moved to a different corner. In circumstances where it's too late in the race for the rider to take the long lap penalty, a time penalty could still be added as well. Let me know how you feel about long lap penalty. Do you think they're a good addition, a good weapon in race direction's arsenal? Do you feel good, bad, and different about it? And if you like this kind of content, hit the like button and please consider subscribing as well.